Alright, what I'm going to do before these are the new rotors I got. These are power stop rotors. And I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the face of this with some acetone. They suggest that just in case there's any oil from the manufacturing process or when they ship it. That way you don't get anything loaded up on your brake shoe, which you don't want. So I'm going to wipe down the front and the back. Make sure there are no additional grease on it. That should make it good to be able to put it back on. I'm going to go ahead and add some anti-seize to the front of this hub before I put my rotor back on. It just ensures that if we go to take these off next time, I'm not going to have a problem of it seizing up or rusting to the hub itself. So we got that on there, and we'll just take a second and get the rotor on next. Okay, that's good enough. Just make sure I don't have too much of this on my hands before I pick up the rotor. And then we'll go ahead and slide the rotor on here. Here's the rotor. Okay, now one thing that I've heard helps sometimes to keep this aligned is if you can take your lug nut, add one of your lug nuts to the stud. That'll keep this kind of in place. Now mine may not work because mine aren't an open-ended lug. They're actually a lug that's for this specific American racing wheel. Actually that works. So that kind of holds it back against the hub, so as you're putting the rest of the cage and caliper back on, it sits in there nice and tight and in the right position. Okay, this is the bolt that connects the cage back to the spindle on the front here, and I'm going to go ahead and add back some blue Loctite. They had originally put Loctite on at the factory. I'm sure it was just for vibration purposes, so I'm going to add a little bit back on here, get my cage back up in place, and then we'll go ahead and start putting the other bolt back on and tightening it down. So let's see what we can do here. Start with this top one. Go ahead and get that bottom one, and I'll get the goop on that. I'll put that one on too. It's nice when they're clean because they go in a heck of a lot easier too. So I'll go ahead and add some more Loctite to the second bolt. And then we'll put that one in the bottom. And then after this, I'm going to just lightly kind of tighten down on these a little bit with my 1/2 inch number 21, and then I'm going to come back with the torque wrench. These bolts are said to need 220 pounds of torque on them, the 21, so I'm going to go ahead and use the torque wrench then on that. So I'll do that next. Okay, we got the bottom one torqued, and I'm just finishing up on this top bolt now. It's quite a bit of pressure, but there's the second one. So 220 foot-pounds on the cage. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the caliper back on and put the slide bolts back in as well. So I made sure my cups were compressed properly inside there. They were compressed from when I used that pry bar, so I'm in good shape. I don't have to do anything more. Sometimes you have to use a seat clamp in there and a block of wood to compress them a little farther if needed. These seem like they're in pretty good shape. What I did is I actually added some grease back to these slide pins and greased them up real good, had them clean, and we're going to go ahead and put those back in now and screw them in. kind of start by just lining that top one up and then getting the bottom one in before I go too far, so I know they both are fitting correctly. The one thing you want to be a little careful of, there's these accordion boots that are down on each side of the caliper that go in between here. You want to make sure that they are compressed correctly in there. You don't want them turned sideways or bunched up, because that's what helps keep the dust from entering this slide area, and you don't want the dust from the brake pads going in there. So just make sure those little accordion boots are centered correctly and they're not pulled to the side or compressed funny. So we'll go ahead and tighten these down just with a socket to start, and then we'll come back and add the torque to it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and torque this top caliper bolt, the slide pin. It's at 80-pound torque, so we're going to go ahead and get that done. That's it. Now we'll go ahead and hit this bottom one. And there's the bottom one. Okay, there's the completed brake job. New rotors, new brake shoes, cleaned up all the caliper and got some paint on that. So now we're just going to go ahead and finish the opposite side and go ahead and clean up our wheels and get them back on.